I love it when a round comes together. Hello. Good morning. I'm Reverend J. Wolin, settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota. So wonderful to be with everyone. I know yesterday was our big auction, and so I know many of those people are just tired out from that. So, but you'll get a big announcement, and thanks to everybody who participated. Next week, you're on the schedule for that. But I especially want to welcome today visitors that we may have here. I've already met a few of you, but if you'd like and are interested, you please sign up if you want to get a newsletter. For those online, there is a link on the banner on our website. If you're in person here, the table outside, you can sign up as well. We have coffee, and I think today we'll have good desserts because we have leftover from yesterday. And so we look forward to getting to know you better. And today we have a special announcement, first from Nina Tortelli of our Racial Justice Coordinating Team to talk about an upcoming program.
Good morning. You are invited to attend the workshop, Building a Culture of Inclusion, this Friday evening from 6:30 to 8:30 and Saturday from 10 to 3:30. The planning team is pictured here. There's a number that we need to thank in putting this together. We are honored and excited to have Dr. Paula Cole-Jones here in person leading this workshop. She has over 20 years experience designing and facilitating workshops for UU congregations and organizations throughout the country. She is a leader in the Unitarian Universalist Association. Her work includes leading the advancement of the eighth principle and the concepts of building community of communities for widening the circle of inclusion. This is a board-sponsored free event as we learn the concepts and the strategies for building the beloved community here at UUCS. There's still time to register for this in-person or Zoom attendance. We need to know the numbers as soon as possible so the tech team can do the planning, the room arrangements, and also for lunch on Saturday. Stop by the social justice table today to register or register on Zoom, and you can put your phone up against the QR code to take you to the registration site. And here's a personal invitation from Dr. Paula Cole-Jones for you.
We, Unitarian Universalists, are a community of communities, living our values, fulfilling our mission in the world, and working to build the beloved community. This is how I think about us. Hi, I am Paula Cole-Jones, a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. I look forward to meeting you soon. It won't be long before we are together for a workshop on the eighth principle and building a culture of inclusion. I hope that you will join us. So much has happened in recent years. Our culture is changing. The world is changing. We have been in a global pandemic for about 2 years, and another generation is coming of age. What lies ahead for Unitarian Universalism? Our association is changing in new and exciting ways, but change often comes with challenges. What do we hold on to? What do we let go of? These are sometimes hard choices to make. In the upcoming workshop entitled Building a Culture of Inclusion, we will share some ideas that can give us flexibility as we explore who we are as Unitarian Universalists and who we might become in the years ahead. One workshop participant said, quote, "If I were on the fence about the eighth principle, I would have been 100% convinced that it is the right thing to do, end quote. So look, I hope that you are interested and that you will come and meet and be in discussion with your fellow congregants, and that together we will begin to take a look at how do we reinvent ourselves for a vibrant future. You take care. See you soon.
One other quick announcement as well. Right after service today, after each of the services, you are welcome to join and become a member of this church. We will later on have getting to know you classes and formal recognition and service, but if you would like to become a member, if you feel now is the time, right after service, about 10 minutes after the service, so you can get coffee, because we do not want to keep you from your coffee, to meet in the minister's office, which is the building right behind this building on the other side, facing that way, in the Lexow wing. So we hope that those who are thinking about it decide to join in community with us formally. And now I invite you to rise in body and or spirit for our opening hymn number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. Okay. Our opening reading is entitled Embodiment by Reverend Ranwa Hamami. Grounding ourselves into deep gratitude for the miracle of our bodies, however they look, move, and interact with the world around us, includes not only a celebration of our individual physical beings, but also a deep reverence for the intimacy of our connections. After all, our bodies do not exist in a vacuum. We physically interact with countless structures, systems, and communities each day that impact and are impacted by our flesh, our bones, our spirit. For some of us, these interactions are predominantly empowering moments of welcome and respect. And for some of us, we encounter confusion, denial, and outright rejection as our norm. As Unitarian Universalists, we have historically embraced the breadth of our lived experiences of the world as a faithful teacher, crossing the permeable barrier between sacred and profane to deepen our embodiment of the liberating and life-affirming holy truths, end quote. So let the lighting of our chalice be a symbol of the inner light that will lead us on the path to liberation. And so please join me now saying the words of affirmation which are printed in the order of service and displayed above. As we light this chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, we affirm our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
So nice to see so many of you here today. Our story, Don't Hug Doug. He Doesn't Like It, written by Carrie Finnison and drawings by Daniel Wiseman. You can hug a pug. Aww. You can hug a bug. Maybe. Or a slug. Ew. But don't hug Doug. He doesn't like it. You can hug a valentine. Sweet. Or a porcupine. Not recommended. Or a Frankenstein. Rrr. But don't hug Doug. He doesn't like it. Don't worry, Doug likes you. He just doesn't like hugs. Doug thinks hugs are too squishy and squashy and squooshy and smooshy. There are lots of things Doug does like. He likes to sort his rock collection and try on his sock collection and draw with his chalk collection. And he really likes harmonica bands, but he doesn't like hugs. So no matter how huggable he looks, no matter how much you want to, even if it's his birthday, please don't hug Doug. What about hello hugs? Nope. What about goodbye hugs? Nope. What about game-winning home run hugs? What about dropped ice cream cone hugs? Still no, but I'd love another scoop. There's only one kind of hug that Doug likes, and it's not a squeezy, not a squashy, not a squooshy, not a schmooshy, just right bedtime hug from his mom. Is it bedtime? Are you Doug's mom? No, you're not. So don't hug Doug. Can you hug these people? Doug's best friend Finn, his grandma McGinn, an identical twin, or that kid? There's only one way to find out. Ask. Can I hug you? Not now, gotta roll. Can I hug you, Grandma? Oh yes, I always loved hugs, and I always will. Can I hug you? No. Yes. Can I hug you? Bagu baba. That means yes. Can you hug Doug's pet pot-bellied pig? Ask. Can we hug your pet pot-bellied pig? Boy, that's hard to say. Yes, she loves hugs, but be gentle. She's a little scared of strangers. And some people love hugs. Lots of people don't. And lots of people are somewhere in the middle. Who likes hugs? Raise your hand. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, can you hug Doug? No, he doesn't like it. Oh, nay, ugs, hey. That's pig Latin if you didn't know. But he likes you, and he likes high fives. Doug is a master of high fives. There's the low fives and the side fives, the double five and the elbow five. I think they ought to name this one the COVID 5. There's the jump 5, the puppy 5, and my favorite, the granny 5. He even has a high five for you. So go ahead, ask. No, but I can give you a high five. There we go. So, as a person myself who loves hugs, I've had a hard time remembering that not everyone does like hugs. And coming out of COVID, when I'm getting to see people again, you know, all my good intentions of asking just flew out the window and I just dive right in. So, Doug reminds us that each of us has and should have the right to their own personal space, and more importantly, how they want people to act in their personal space. Each of us has and should have the right to say how they want people to touch them or not. Your body is your own. And even if you're a hugger like me or not, the best way to respect someone is to ask their preference, because it is all about them and their comfort and not really about you and your likes. So now, if I have any younger UUs in the audience, you can join me in the West Wing, where we will explore this month's Soul Matter theme of love, starting with loving yourself. Thank you.
For our centering words, I've chosen a reading by Reverend Greta Jo Seidel called You Are Loved. And I encourage you, it's really a refrain throughout the reading. I encourage you to join in on the line, You Are Loved. If you had an abortion, you are loved. If you've never told a soul, or if you share your story regularly, you are loved. If you are confident in decision or wonder if it was the right choice, you are loved. If you are child-free by choice or can not biologically have children or want to have children eventually, you are loved. If your choice was driven by medical viability or your own emotional health, you are loved. If you found a provider to care for you or had to rely on yourself, you are loved. If you are always pro-choice or if your choice conflicts with your belief, you are loved. If you love your body or are still angry with your body, you are loved. If you believe God loves you or you believe in nothing divine at all, you are loved. If you find yourself reflected here, or your truth is more than words and ink and speaking can say, you are loved. And as we go now into this time of silence, I invite you to contemplate all the ways that you are loved. So we're going to have a little experiment, and I do encourage feedback over time. Instead of doing one 20-minute sermon throughout the service, sometime in the service I'm going to do 2 10-minute reflections throughout the service. So just an experiment. So when I was in high school, I took an elective class called World of Women. Now, my reason for taking this class was not for education at all, but rather to meet girls. It was a sound plan because I was one of only 3 boys in a class of 25 students. But one of the required readings in class included the book, Our Bodies, Ourselves, a book written by women for women. So it sounds like many of you are aware of it, but for those who are not familiar with the book, it included education about anatomical body parts, sex-positive messages, birth control, pregnancy, postpartum issues, and discussions about hospital care for women, among its many, many topics. Obviously cannot imagine this book being allowed in Florida schools today. And although not my intention in taking the class, it did end up being quite an education for me. Like many men from my generation, or I should say boys at the time, communication about sex was non-existent in my household. You know, I was very fortunate. I did not receive negative messages about sex, which some religions espouse, but in general, I was fairly clueless about the details until I took this class. I feel my children were very fortunate that they grew up in Unitarian Universalism and took our sexuality education program called OWL, Our Whole Lives. And my conversations about sex, love, and relationships with them consisted of, so what did you talk about in class today? Which actually really did lead to some very in-depth conversations and really helped start those conversations. Well, January 22nd was the 50th anniversary of the court case Roe v. Wade, a court case that legalized a woman's right to end their pregnancy in the United States. And I first just want to state the obvious. Reproductive justice is a challenging and emotional topic, I know, for many. And so I want you all to take good care and remember that during today's service and after. The questions and issues raised are very, very personal. I believe, this is my belief, that each person should be able to make reproductive decisions themselves based on their conscience. Unitarian Universalists have a long history of supporting bodily autonomy. And although some would debate whether she was a Unitarian, Margaret Sanger certainly associated with Unitarians for a long time. Margaret Sanger and eventually became the founder of an organization that ultimately became Planned Parenthood. Born in 1879, Sanger was the 6th child whose mother was pregnant 18 times in her lifetime, a mother who died at the age of 50. Sanger was a nurse who worked delivering babies in the poorest communities. She saw abject poverty, suffering, and death of women and children whose lives were often at risk due to childbirth. But Sanger was a very complex person with a shadow side as well that I don't think we can ignore. She spoke and wrote about her support for the eugenics movement, a movement that utilized birth control and sterilization to control reproduction to achieve what was considered desirable traits. She was of the belief that certain sociological conditions, such as criminality, were inheritable traits. But she also risked her freedom to provide women bodily autonomy, which was her stated primary goal and her purpose in life. So clearly a complex person. Sanger was arrested 8 times in the course of her life due to providing information and resources to women about avoiding and eliminating pregnancy. And once upon being arrested for importing a diaphragm from overseas when it was illegal to do so. She did this, knowing that. The judge told her, and I quote from the judge, "Women should not have the right to have sex with any sense of security that pregnancy would not result," end quote. Our patriarchal society has long tried to restrict women's autonomy, and particularly autonomy over their reproductive decisions. In 1963, the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly, passed its first statement supporting a woman's right to choose to end a pregnancy. It was the first religious organization to do so, and I am proud of that. Prior to Roe v. Wade, many Unitarian Universalists were active in an underground interfaith network that helped women who sought to end their pregnancy. And over years, there have been statements voted on at General Assembly against governmental laws limiting Roe v. Wade. You use lobbying and use civil disobedience to support contraceptive care in the Affordable Care Act. And in 2012, we as an association chose a 4-year action study item that led to a statement of conscience entitled Reproductive Justice. Now, the framework of this statement was influenced by the BIPOC organization, BIPOC, Black Indigenous People of Color, organization called Sister Song. And the opening language of the statement of conscience is, and I quote, "As Unitarian Universalists, we embrace the reproductive justice framework which espouses the human right to have children, to not have children, to parent the children one has in healthy environments, and to safeguard bodily autonomy and to express one's sexuality freely," end quote. This framework, a broader approach to think about reproductive justice rights. It is inclusive of other phrases such as reproductive health and reproductive choice. And when I hear people who coerce or judge pregnant individuals talking about the right to life, I ask, what about the pregnant person's life? What about the child's life once it's born? If people really wanted to reduce the number of pregnancies ended, they would support sexuality education and contraceptives, but often they do not, because like the judge in the Margaret Sanger case, they believe the only purpose for sex should be to procreate. Butch Hancock, who founded a groundbreaking progressive country group in the 70s called the Flatliners, wrote, and I quote, "Life in Lubbock, Texas taught me 2 things. One is that God loves you and you're going to hell. And the other is that sex is the most awful, filthy thing on earth and you should save it for someone you love." Sadly, that is a message many receive. Unitarian Universalism believes that sexuality is not only beautiful, but it is sacred. Within a consenting relationship between adults, sex is perfectly natural. People should have the right to have sex with a sense of security that pregnancy will not result. We have the technology, right? Every religion has their own beliefs about sexuality and reproduction. In fact, every religion has multiple beliefs around these issues. In the Jewish tradition, the Hebrew Scriptures, the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 7, says, and I quote, "God formed man," which really, the word man, Adam, is really Adama, comes from Adama, which means dust of the earth. That's all that really means, dust of the earth. God formed the dust of the earth and breathed into its nostrils the breath of life, and the human became a living being, end quote. So thus, according to Jewish tradition, until the being breathes its first breath, it is not human. There are numerous writings in the Talmud, which are commentaries on the Jewish scriptures by ancient rabbis, that clearly say a fetus is not a person and is part of the mother, not a separate being. Now, of course, more Orthodox Jewish rabbis have a different perspective. Catholic hierarchy, which are celibate men, believe human life is created at the moment of conception. But last week I was on a phone call organized by Catholics for Choice with Senator Rubio's office discussing women's justice issues. This Catholic organization holds a contrary position from the hierarchy about reproductive decisions. Traditional Buddhism speaks about reincarnated soul entering at conception. However, Western Buddhism tends to support reproductive justice, speaking about compassion for the mother. So my point in all this is that in various religions, conflicting interpretations appear during different times or locations throughout the world that support different views about when life starts. When pregnancy becomes life is a very theological position, and the government should not take positions based on theological grounds. The very first sentence of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. End quote. So freedom is a very important value for Unitarian Universalists. And I just want to quote Vice President Harris. She said in a speech in Tallahassee recently, can we truly be free if a woman cannot make decisions about her life? Can we truly be free if a doctor cannot care for her patients? Can we truly be free if families cannot make intimate decisions about the course of their own lives? End quote. So our goal is to help us to continue to thrive as being a free church, to share these values, these messages of love and justice. And so now I'm going to invite you to exercise your freedom by freeing some of the money from your wallets and your credit and debit cards. And we take our offering. We invite you to be as generous as you can. For those online, for those here on your cell phone, there's a link to donate in the description of the YouTube video or on our website, right under the description of today's service. Let this sacred time begin.
Right to Life by Marge Percy. A woman is not a basket you place your buns in to keep them warm. Not a brood hen you can slip duck eggs under. Not the purse holding the coins of your descendants till you spend them in war. Not a bank where your genes gather interest and interesting mutations in the tainted rain, any more than you are. You plant corn, you harvest it to eat or sell. You put the lamb in the pasture to fatten and haul in to butcher for chops. You slice the mountain for coal and the waters run muddy for years and miles. Fish die, but you do not call them yours unless you wished to eat them. Now you legislate mineral rights in a woman. You lay claim to her pasture for grazing, fields for growing babies like iceberg lettuce. You value children so dearly that none ever go hungry, nor weep when no one to tend them when their mothers work. None lack fresh fruits, none chew lead or cough to death, and your orphanages are empty. Every noon, the best restaurants serve poor women steaks. At this moment at 9 o'clock, a patera is performing a tabletop abortion on an unwed mother in Texas who can't get Medicaid any longer. In 5 days, she will die of tetanus, and her little daughter will cry and be taken away. Next door, a husband and wife are sticking pins in the sun they did not want. They will explain for hours how wicked he is, how he wants discipline. We are all born of women. In the rows of the womb, we suckled our mother's blood. And every baby born has a right to love, like a seedling to the sun. Every baby born unloved, unwanted, is a bill that will come due in 20 years with interest, and an anger that must find a target, a pain that will beget pain. A decade downstream, a child screams, a woman falls, a synagogue is torched, a firing squad is summoned, a button is pushed, and the world burns. I will choose what enters me, what becomes my flesh. Without choice, no politics, no ethics lives. I am not your cornfield, not your uranium mine, not your calf for fattening, not your cow for milking. You may not use me as your factory. Priests and legislators do not hold shares in my womb or my mind. This is my body. If I give it to you, I want it back. My life is a non-negotiable demand.
So overturning Roe v. Wade did not just happen overnight. It took years of careful planning and action. I imagine it will take years of planning and action to restore this right nationally. Some of that work has already started. 3 states, Vermont, California, and Michigan, passed state constitutional ballot measures affirming reproductive freedom or bodily autonomy. 2 other states, Kentucky and Kansas, attempted to pass a state ballot measure denying constitutional right to ending a pregnancy, and both of those failed. And currently there are lawsuits against 17 states that have implemented restrictions since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. As we saw in the last election, regaining reproductive justice was a predominant issue when people voted, and we must ensure that it stays on people's mind every election until these rights are restored. As of now, Florida has a 15-week waiting period within which to end a pregnancy, and there are lawsuits challenging that limitation. As with any issue we face, there are a number of steps in the road ahead. We must understand our religious values that underpin our work. We must be educated. We must be a public witness to influence the community. And we must organize and advocate for change. And we must strive for systemic change. But until those changes happen, we also must be here to be of service to those women who are denied their autonomy to make decisions about their bodies. So why is reproductive justice part of our religious values? Well, Unitarian Universalist principles call us to this expansive approach towards reproduction. We do share a reverence for life, as indicated in our first source of wisdom. If a person chooses to bring a pregnancy to fruition, the parents should be able to be confident that they will have the ability and support to raise that child in a healthy environment. Florida still has not accepted the full Medicaid expansion that could help many people who find themselves in lower socioeconomic conditions. If we have a reverence for life, let us expand and extend our health benefits, pre- and postnatal care for women, for all who need it. Our principles say we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and we believe in the right of a woman to discern by her own conscience to make decisions what is best for her life. We believe in justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And the reason I chose not to use the word reproductive choice is because for many women, especially poor women, they do not actually have a choice because they do not have access to reproductive health care. Right? There are no health providers for a long distance from where they may live, or they may not have the money, and it's just not available to them. Right? So until every woman can have free access to reproductive care, there is not choice. Until every woman is free, no one is free. So what can we do? First, we can continue to educate ourselves, and starting Wednesday, February 15th, the Reproductive Justice Team and I will be starting a 7-week adult religious education class entitled Sacred Principles and Commitments. SACRED is an acronym for Spiritual Alliance of Communities for Reproductive Dignity. All Souls Unitarian Universalist in Washington, D.C. is a founding member of SACRED and participated in the creation of this curriculum. We will learn and discuss the history of reproductive justice. We will dive deeper into the theological underpinnings of this issue. We will explore how intersectional oppressions often impact individuals. We will gain understanding and eliminate shame around individual reproductive decisions. We will examine the need for support for parents in raising children in a healthy supportive environment. We will engage in the spiritual activism to guide us in our future commitment. So I encourage you to attend. If you want to participate in the ongoing justice work in this area, I invite you to please connect with Kate Lanneman, who will also be at the class. She is the chair of our reproductive justice team. The team will research and coordinate with other organizations that have similar values about reproductive justice. And together we need to be able to provide care to women so they will have access to reproductive medical care. Perhaps that will require us to provide sanctuary and create a new underground railroad for women and doctors until our reproductive freedoms are returned. We not only need to shout it in the streets, but in the courthouse and in the voting booths, but we also need to have these quiet conversations with others and not demonize them for having different views than us. And we must also demand that they not demonize us for our views, right? We are at a turning point in the history of this country and this state in particular. There is a fever of intolerance that seems to have gripped a segment of the population. We see that fear of diversity in the vandalized art that we sponsored in the Embracing Our Differences exhibit. We see that fear of equity in the gutting of education at New College and other public educational institutions. We see that fear of inclusion in the censorship of book and African American studies. They fear the message of love, compassion, and inclusion because it is a threat to the straight, white, male, patriarchal system that has had control over women and this society for too long, and the time is now to change that. And we are at the epicenter, and we can make a difference. Let us build our resolve. Let us build our resilience to the rising hate. And after the vandalism, the Embracing Our Differences organization put out a statement, I quote, "Diversity is a reality, not a slogan. Human beings come in all shapes, sizes, colors, ethnic backgrounds, abilities, and sexual orientations. That is a fact," end quote. Unitarian Universalism is an expansive religion that calls on us to side with love. Love is a positive force in the universe. Love that creates, love that endures. So let us be a positive force in our community. Let us create a society that respects bodily autonomy, and let us endure and thrive as we face the challenges ahead. May it be so. And now I invite us all to sing, and with a closing song, "We Will Not Be Controlled" by Abigail Benson. I assume the words will be on the screen.
We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul. We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul. Sing it with me. We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my spirit. I am sovereign in my soul. We will not be controlled. I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul. We will not be controlled. Oh, I am sovereign in my body. I am sovereign in my soul.
Our closing words come from an excerpt from the 2022 UUA General Assembly Action of Immediate Witness. We do not consent taking action to ensure access to abortion. Our Unitarian Universalist faith affirms that all of our bodies are sacred and that we are each endowed with the twin gifts of agency and conscience. Each of us should have the power to decide what does and doesn't happen to our bodies at every moment of our lives, because consent and bodily autonomy are holy. Please join me now in extinguishing the chalice with the words in the order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you.